And there's a newcomer from Africa. Maybe you can introduce yourself. Very brief.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Ibrahim Anyang. I'm from Senegal. I'm here to complete the last steps of my PhD research. My research is about China-Africa relationships in case of my country, and at the same moment I'm here to learn some lessons from China and make, like, if it is possible, like to set up such kind of lesson in our country. That's why I'm here.
If I may just take a minute to explain who we are to your group.
Okay, yeah.
We're the International Masters for Practicing Management. It's a program that's offered by McGill University in Montreal and Lancaster University in the UK jointly with partner universities here, and also in Bangalore, the Indian Institute of Management in Bangalore, and in Brazil. So we have we're going to Rio de Janeiro in October. So the program moves from each of these locations. This is our fourth module of 5. We started off in Lancaster with the Industrial Revolution, the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, and also the birthplace of a lot of reflection, as we learned. It was called the reflective mindset. And then the next mindset was the analytic mindset, which we did in Montreal, which is about organizing and about analysis, different forms of analysis. The third one was called the worldly mindset, which we did in Bangalore. That was just in January. And now we're here in China, in Beijing, for the collaborative mindset. So we're trying to see how people manage to work together across cultures, across disciplines, that sort of thing. And then it's the action mindset in Brazil. I think partly because there's this attitude in Brazil of, why not? So that's who we are, and we're from various parts of the world as well. We're from Canada, from Brazil, from Germany, from Palestine, from Africa, from India.
Namibia.
Well, Namibia in Africa. And that's part of Africa, as far as I know. Naming countries. And other places as well. So we're an international group as well, just as you are. There you are.
Thank you. And I also need to do some little bit broadcast advertising for myself. I have signed a different contract with different universities because the top 10 universities, like the university, become more and more backward in China. In name of top 10, indeed, not so not so active. So if you do think that my lecture is very interesting, you can send your students or your colleague will come to me. Okay. And I signed a contract with Fujian Agriculture and Forestry University in Fujian, in Fuzhou. I also signed a contract in Southwest University in Chongqing. All 5 years. But here, I'm going to retire next year. So, maybe you can find me in other universities. Okay, thank you. Let me continue my lecture. Here, I'm trying to show the main concepts and arguments. And it's almost very short, very brief introduction about the modern Chinese history. And I said there is a 3 times localization. If you think about it, the budget is a very important system. Look at the budget system here. Before the 1957, the central budget is almost 80% of the total government's income. And because Soviet Union invested in China, as I just gave you the explanation, I said almost all developing countries have no capital. When you start your industrialization, you need to have the capital. If you don't have yourself, you need to have a foreign capital, foreign direct investments. So the first foreign investments from Soviet Union caused by the Korean War in the year 1950. And It's because of the kind of strategic ally, China and Russia. So Soviet Union invests China mainly taken by the central governments. So the central budget is very rich. A local budget is almost nothing. So local budget is very low, 20% something above. And central budget is 80% until 1957. Why? You may know that Bandung, International Conference in Bandung, in Indonesia, that is 1955. 1955 is a very important year because China at that time have an internal meeting talking about how to maintain independence. Because that you got large amount of Soviet investments into China, and also that you got to make the Soviet Union stand the specialists help to set up your governments to manage these industries because you are guerrilla people from the countryside, almost illiterates. 70% of your government's officials illiterates. No modern knowledge. How can you manage this a big factory? So at that time, China not only accept these factories, machines, also accept the Soviet Union officials, technicians, and managers. So one factory manager, China got to pay the salary as the president, as the chairman of China. One technician, you need to pay as a minister the salary because you are a poor country. You got to pay very high, and the double, because this side Soviet Union tell you that I gave you one manager, I got to train another one, so I need double salary. That is reasonable. So you got to pay double for the management, and also that almost all the government departments you need to under the instruction by the Soviet Union. So the whole of the superstructure politically and the infrastructure economically, all Soviet Union control, including of the military force. Almost all the facilities of your Chinese military sponsored from Soviet Union. And then the management system also need to take from Soviet Union. So when the whole China, like Soviet Union system, can you maintain your independence? That is discussed in 1955. When Soviet Union invested into China, changed the whole of the system 5 years later. And then there's another event, it's a Bandung International Conference, talking about how these developing countries can set up another war. That is the third world theory originally from this 1955. And then from 1956, also very important factor, that is the Hungarian conflict. Chinese party gave the very officially information to Soviet Union. Chinese Communist Party disagree with Soviet Union, deal with Hungarian conflicts, but it's not public, just by the internal communication. And then from 1957, Soviet Union said if China wouldn't like to keep the strategic ally, we will stop strategic investments. So from 1957, the central budget decreased very sharply, down to 20%. And then the local percentage doesn't mean local have a more reach. No, local became 80%. That is the first time localization. You have no any ability in central to invest, and you cannot maintain Soviet Union invested in these factories because you have no managers, no technicians, even no workers. At that time, China import the workers from Soviet Union and then pay the government's department chief's salary in 1950s. So that's a very high cost industrialization if you use the foreign capital. So that is why the first time they got very serious problems is 1957. If no capital investment from overseas, your industrialization immediately fall into the trap. No capital investment. So from this time, capital investment became zero. And then from this time, from 1961, you got to pay back. All of these investment turned to the debts, the government's debts. You got to pay back. Originally, that they don't want you to pay back because it's a kind of strategic loss. Now, if you break, you got to pay back. Almost all developing country, if you don't want to be the follower, you want to maintain your independence, you need to pay your cost. That is the institutional cost. That is happening in China, and then fall into the trap. How China climb up from the trap. That is the problem. So when you talk about squeeze the labor, if you have no capital, only one resource is your labor. By what? If individual, no way. So by collective system, by people's common system. And then people's common system means that you can concentrate your labor to replace the capital, because capital becomes zero, even become minus. You got to pay back. So the capital is minus. Only one resource is. If you have such kind of system, you can take your labor resources to replace, to substitute the capital. That is 1960s. In name of left wing, by Cold War ideology. So that's why I said Cold War ideology is very ridiculous. They never concern about if you know capital, how can you deal with the problem? They don't give the explanation. They just say, okay, you became left wing. Left wing is bad, and then you it's a kind of communist country, whatever. But you need to climb up. They don't care how that you climb up. They don't care. So that is we said the localization. The central parties, when they have the crisis, the central parties got to take more, and then to solve the nationwide problem. And when they recover, these years, China recovered, and then the central parties downgrade. So then that is the first time localization. Second time localization is 1970s, because remember, also caused by conflicts between China and the Soviet Union. You may know that 1969, there is a fighting at the border between China and Soviet Union, 1969. And the United States think that it's a good chance to regain China. So in 1970, 71, Nixon come to China to say hello to Mao. Before he come, like now Obama say hello to Cuban leader, okay? Release block of the Cuba. So in 1971, American gave up the block China. That is a very big policy because whole Western countries followed the United States block China since 1950 until 71. And then there's a second time. The local got a chance in 1971 to, especially this coastal area, they got a chance to take these foreign from Western countries to take facilities, machines, especially from Hong Kong, Taiwan, Macau. It's overseas Chinese area. And then some Western facilities going to the local governments in coastal area. So local second have the chance to have localization, local development. And to make very high inflation, because almost all of these foreign investments, machines, facilities going into China immediately turn to the foreign debts. Who take the risk? Central. So when the 1970s, the inflation goes up, foreign debts goes up, central got to increase more central budget power. So the central take the risk, play a role to readjust the economic situation. And then that is the 1970s. And then the late 1970s, the local regained the power until 1993 because of the more serious, more severe economic crisis happening. Nowadays, you can see here, the half-half. That is a central readjust the budget system to make local have a 50%, central have 50% since 1994. So 1994 is also a very big year to make Chinese central local relation become balanced. That is a real experiences. I don't think any professor can give an explanation like this one. They only talk about whole China. They have no knowledge of the local. My research team carry out research one province by another province. And then we found that the real Chinese experiences is not like the foreign Chinese studies. If you're in India, you may know that the Gujarat, led by your new premier, how that Gujarat developed more faster than others. We sent our team to be there to know the local experiences and then to do the comparative studies. So we do a lot of comparative studies and then we know that what is the real Chinese experiences. So here it's very important to show that central budget and local budget and then to show that localization. And as I mentioned just now, the first part I talked is a preface talking about Chinese ABC. I said central strictly control the financial power. When China took large amount of local crises, the local risks, turned to central by issuing more central budget bonds and central bank currencies. Use the central controlled political power. That is a so-called centralized economic part. So control the central control the financial power means when you have the financial crisis, only central can deal with, can solve this. So when 1997, we're facing the financial turmoil happened in East Asian countries. That is the first central issued much more budget bond. Originally, before 1998, every year Chinese central only have a 50 billion budget bond. But 1998, this year, when they facing the challenge of financial crisis, they issued 380 billion budget bonds. It's almost 8 times than before. And then the year of 1993, when we have a very serious budget crisis, Chinese issue large amount of the paper money. That is why I need to give another story to make it more clear to know what is central power. When Soviet Union collapsed, I carried my bag to do my observation in 7 East European socialist countries, former countries, especially in Soviet Union. I found one thing is very important. At that time, I was a visiting scholar in Columbia University in New York. And I used my American Express credit. When I entered these East European countries, immediately I became millionaire. Because almost all of these East European countries' bank system collapsed. When I go to the Russia, the Soviet Union bankrupted. When I went to the Russia, I changed originally that when when I was a pupil, my family accept Soviet Union specialists because my parents trained to speak Russian. Originally, they were so-called rich family before liberation, so they learned English in the university. When Communist Party controlled mainland China, they turned to learn Russian language. So my family the Russian specialists live in my family. So my sisters speaking Russian, I speaking English. It's because of change. And when I was in Russia, certainly my family and my sister, they have friends in Russia. So they can host me and give me some local guides. So originally that 1 ruble can change $3.8. But when I went into Russia, $1 changed 4,800 rubles. Think about what is upside down. And that's because when you have lost your political regime, means that your money system no credit. The money credit exact cost will come from the political power. So when they lose the power, they have no money system. That is a very important experience I got. And then when I came back to China, immediately I wrote a report to the Central Policy Circle. I said that when you started reform, China started reform, economic reform. When you start reform politically, you should think about what is your financial system, what is financial credit come from. So that is 1991, China started to make money to be money, to be currency to be currency. That is the year 1992. Not only that I give a report, no. We have so many discussions to talk about how to make money to be money, how to make Chinese currency to be currency. Say goodbye to the originally Soviet Union system, that is battery system. Then we gave up battery system in the year 1992. And since that year, the money to be the money, the currency to be the currency. That is a very important that China took the lessons from Soviet Union. So if in Brabant you want to learn Chinese lessons, you first need to learn what is Soviet Union lesson. And then you can know that China, how China took the lesson from Soviet Union and changed their financial system in China. So from that time, we have a new bank system, but still be close to the budget system until new century. So that is a step by step. We learned a lot from the war, and then we took different lessons, come back, try to be very cautious to make our own policies. Not so easy to duplicate, like this very radical politician in name of some left wing or right wing, and then they just follow this ideology. We don't think that ideology is not exactly from China. Ideology is from Western society. So we be very cautious to deal with such kind of problems. So that is why I show the real budget change, the percentage change to you, and then to make you to understand what is the difference. And then because this one is east-west, and that is west. Why is west very backward? Because of the domestic investments, limited investments, originally taken by the coastal area. So the coastal area also take large amount of FDI, and then the FDI turn to the budget debts, and the budget debts taken by the central. So the local, if you want to develop Western China, only one way is to rely on the central investments. By local themselves, no way. No matter how you announce you want to accept the marketization or whatever. So in the 1980s, when the central governments allocated me as a group member to facilitate the World Bank carry out their mission in China, they very much emphasize the four Zations: privatization, marketization, liberalization, globalization. These four Zations is the World Bank thoughts in any country. But in China, they're facing the group like us. And then for that, the Chinese central government sent me to the United States in the University of Michigan to learn the methodology. I use the same method to deal with the World Bank mission. Every year they send 20, even 30 specialists come to China to challenge our program implementation. And then we facing this challenge, use the same method to deal with this challenge, and then we win. Finally, we said, okay, whatever you want, all carried out. And then World Bank mission said, okay, we compare with other countries' program. This one is the only successful. That is we communicate with each other with the same method, a different idea. Nowadays, I gave you the same method and explanation, or maybe different idea. I just hope you take into consideration. I never want you to accept it. You can think as a kind of reference. Okay, so last time we talked about 75% of the regional gap caused by the investments, by the capital investments. So, and the large amount of the capital investments allocated in the big cities, and then to make this industrial group also based on the big mega cities, and then to make very severe pollution. So most of these mega cities in China became severe pollution area. It's not good for people's life. That is why I mentioned I signed a contract with the local university, because they are much better the air pollution than the Beijing. So when you first come to Beijing, you may think that Beijing is a very modernized city. You may not know that Beijing is not quite available for people live here. So when I retired from this top 10 university, I will go to some other place to enjoy fresh air. Here it's not good. And then give you the analysis about China, allocate China into the world economic structure. China is a kind of double supply country to the West. The first one is that the manufacturing products exports to West to make low price, and then to help most of these Western countries have a low inflation. That is why a lot of Western countries, common people said, every day we need to buy Chinese goods. And then China got large amount of trade surplus, and then resupply. The second supply is as a foreign reserve reinvested into the Western countries. So Western countries enjoy two supply. The more trade deficit, the more capital account surplus. That is a world structure economically. So nowadays, the big issue or big problem happening around China is because China wants to change such kind of structure. You may know that's very important. Since the 2008 financial turmoil happened in Wall Street, China tried to communicate with Japan, South Korea, and Chinese Taiwan to make East Asian area change their basic structure. Originally, this area is the biggest investor to American bond market. China, Japan, top 1, top 2. Now they said, okay, we don't need to continue to do that. So they want to set up a commitment among East Asian countries to be local currency for the exports in the region. When they are trying to sign such kind of commitment, means that they will sell out American dollar. That will be more danger to Wall Street. That is why there's East China Sea have a conflict among Japan, China, and South Korea. And nowadays, China impossible to sign the commitment to Japan. So China got to continue to invest into American bond markets. That is a very, very smart power. So smart power stirred up the local conflicts, and then you cannot do your original plan. The small danger is that Germany want to join, because Germany is the biggest trade surplus country for China. One country in Europe, Germany, the total trade surplus can be the same volume of the total trade deficit of the other European countries. So if Germany join this local currency ally, local currency commitment, means that this war will be no position as an American dollar. American dollar is originally a central bank of the world. It's also 70% of the international trade calculated by American dollar. And 60% of the foreign reserve is American dollar. So the European Union sent several times a mission sent to China, want China to change the reserve structure, to take more euro, give up more dollar. But China dare not to do that. When they want to do that, it means that you are the enemy of America. So something like that, we should take into the consideration. So the regional conflicts is not exactly the local conflicts. It's somehow influenced by these so-called geostrategy. So that is why we give the basic structure to show that if China very China still continue to do this one, double supply. Okay, you can be the follower. If you want to change such kind of structure, that will be big trouble. So that is nowadays. It's not because of its decisions. It's because of that you change or not. Just a minute. And just now I said we have many times crisis. That's curves to show that every time China have a urban capital crisis, always transfer out the cost to the rural area. You may know that we have educated youth going to the countryside. The first one is 1961. I mentioned that from that time China got very serious crisis, and then more than 10 million urban unemployed youth sent to the countryside. And then the second one is that because 1966, the urban capital got the second time crisis, and then more than 20 million young people from urban sent to countryside. And the third one is 1970s. Also more than 10 million young people unemployed in the urban area sent to countryside. And even the families. The second time in 1960s, whole of my family members all sent to countryside, including my parents. Because this university is a so-called social science university. You cannot contribute to the production. So this university dismissed. University professors sent to countryside. Nobody can feed you food because of the crisis. So the Chinese facing the crisis challenge send the people to the countryside as 1949. I got to mention you that 1949 when the new communist government set up, there's a high inflation. Almost no factory can work. So 49, China got very serious crisis. And sent 88% population go back to countryside to enjoy your village life by the land revolution. And then the crisis in the urban area became less and less because the rural people can contribute too much, can contribute a lot of surplus to the urban. So China, when they founded in 1949, that they got to deal with the crisis by send people back to countryside. So every time Maoism, how Mao deal with the crisis, sent this big surplus of the urban labor force to the countryside. But one thing is very important. If there is no collective system, can we send large number of the urban people to the countryside? That is the question you can take into consideration. When I was sent to the countryside, I'm just 17 years old. My youngest brother is only 16 years old. My sister, 19 years old. We all sent to countryside and then take by this village collective. And then village, they have a collective store and then give food. Because we don't know how to do the work in agriculture. We are the middle class school students. So think about more than 10 million sent to countryside. By individual households, no way. We are accepted by collective system. And then when urban industry recover, they can have more room for these employments, these and these unemployment people in countryside can be step by step come back. That is China in Mao's time, how to recover when they fall into the trap of the crisis. Now, Deng's time. Just a minute, I will finish this one. When Deng took the power, same. Every new leadership took the power, same downgrade. I mean, the economic GDP growth decreased. Every leader. And then Mao died. They cannot send people to the countryside. So the first time is hard landing in the urban area. That is Deng. So Deng reform is exact caused by the hard landing. 400 million from countryside come back to the urban area. Our people, I'm the one of these 40 million. My sister, my youngest brother, all the same. We all come back from the countryside and no job. So we have jobless, homeless, securityless, certain wifeless. Nothing. But we are more than 20 years. We are anyway, we need to have a life. So that time is very, very big challenge. And how Deng make how to deal with that is a so-called reform. Give more power to local, to make all the local set up local economy, to accept these unemployed laborers. And then to open these markets, to make these people to be the dealer. And then to buy something from Shenzhen and selling in different inland cities. At that time, that's open the markets. So the market-oriented reform is exactly caused by the hard landing in urban industries, one by another. So that is the explanation. I gave this, you can took this PPT back to read these words, and then you can know every time we have a GDP decrease and then recover after reform these 40 years. So Mao's time, Deng's time, the same. All caused by different crises. That is our explanation. And then, what's the question you?
I was curious about these village collectives. What was the land base for the village collectives if it wasn't the traditional rights you have in a village? You've got all these people coming in. What was the basis for them to do work land? Because I know that land is all allocated.
As I got to say, it's a very good question. And because that the village collective, not exactly for village people. The village collective system is exactly for the primitive accumulation of the industries in the urban area. So collective means that you can concentrate your labor force, because labor force is a big surplus resources. Concentrate them for the national infrastructure construction. Built up 38,000 big reservoirs and the irrigation systems by labor, not by machines, because of you set up the people's common system.
So it was like Roosevelt's New Deal.
Like Roosevelt. So Mao's time, same. So Roosevelt New Deal, named by himself, Roosevelt himself. He said, my New Deal is new statism.
Yeah.
You said it's socialism, okay. You said communism, okay. Indeed, state play important role to concentrate almost all the resources for primitive accumulation for the urban industrialization, not rural. Until urban became industrialized, and then gave rights to the rural. And then rural set up mainly village ownership or private ownership. This is small size and mid-sized enterprises. Now give room as township construction for these small mid-sized enterprises. And then the urban mainly controlled by state capital. Now give room to rural, to private sector, and then develop these small size, mid-sized enterprises to absorb more employment. That is a new strategy. No matter you name it socialism or capitalism, that is your business.
One more question. The Cultural Revolution, was it a response to a crisis, or was it a cause of crisis?
I need another class. Not only Cultural Revolution, but also why China emphasized class struggle in the beginning of 1960s. And why there is a kind of anti-rightist movement. A lot of political movements I gave explanation, but not this course. You need another maybe half day at least. But now you almost all the political movements, you can find the reason in the economic issues. So you may read my my book, talk about the crisis in China, and then I give explanation what kind of crisis caused what kind of political movements. This book will be published in English in next year. Now it's in translation.
I look
The
forward
Chinese
to it.
one we have. If you want to read Chinese, it's okay.
Do you make any forward-looking statements in the book? I'd be curious how China would meet a crisis today if there was another one. Let's say, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't even matter. Food shortage. With the rise of the political class being as wealthy as they are, you got 500 million middle-class people now. Can China still pull the levers that it once did?
No way. But food crisis is another.
That's a different.
It's quite different because that our agricultural specialists worldwide have calculated the whole of the food products. It's that 1/3 is surplus. Not food shortage.
Yeah.
It's a food surplus in the worldwide. In China also, that China have 20% of the green products of the world, 19% of the population. And China have 67% of vegetable. 19% of the population means that vegetable production in China, large surplus. Waste more than half. And then the freshwater products, also that's more than 40%. And the poultry and the meat, 50%. And the fruit, like apple and orange, 40%. Most of these agricultural products in China is a surplus. So if you use the chemical investments, you can have large products. But it's not good. So now the real problem is how to change your style, change your production. Become more organic, and to set up the environmental friendly agriculture, not destroy the environment. So many challenges we should deal with. Okay. So can I continue? So here is a coastal areas, industries. You know the smiling curve. I think that is a very popular explanation. Smiling curve means that production is very low benefits. Most of these coastal areas, they have their industries under the smiling curve. So you cannot break such kind of regulation. Means that very low. And then the local governments take large amount of land from the village, and then to eradicate a lot of local conflicts. And this one, I think that I don't have enough time and pass of these things. Only one thing that I got to mention. That is from IMF and OPEC. They talk about the worldwide government stats. When the 2009 global crisis happened, we gave the analysis. The government stats, EU limit is 60%. Now the government stats in China is, predicting in the that is in 2014, 2 years later, Chinese debt still be lower. Even governments play important role to use new Roosevelt deal. They still have a very low debt. Means that if China can enlarge the properties, physical properties, means you still can have a more government debt. So a lot of foreign investments, especially these big institutional investments, they find me to give them explanation about the Chinese economic prediction. They pay me very high and ask me to give them explanation why China can gain high growth. I told them because the governments play very important role via new Roosevelt deal policies. The governments still have a very big room to use the government debt. That is not my data, it's IMF. So you can see that Japan is the highest, and the European countries, US also very high. So it means that it's a big continent. That large amount of these Western-made China in these areas, especially the towns. I said we have 30,000 construction towns, all need infrastructure construction. If you want to make these towns to be the platform to absorb these labors and mid and small-sized enterprises, you need to invest into the infrastructure construction. That is why we said China still can have 10 to 20 years growth, because the room to be there. If there's no regional conflict, no fighting, we can still gain high growth. If there is a kind of like South China Sea and East China Sea, there's a regional conflicts happening, we may lose the chance. So that is why China turned to the West Asia, Middle Asia, to set up the Silk Road. It's because very tension relation in this ocean road. We cannot go east, we only can go west. That is also why China more emphasized the relation with Europe. Because European Union, these countries more and more understand they cannot rely on the Atlantic strategic ally. It's a serious contradiction between Euro system and dollar system. That's financial contradiction. So that is why China still insists on not free convertible, because China don't want to join such kind of very severe contradiction between dollar system and Euro system. We don't want to play the third role. We want to maintain very conservative policy. When you fight each other, and we just observe and take the lessons from you and then try to improve ourselves. That is our traditional strategy. Maybe we can maintain, maybe not. And now we talk about the townization. And the Western big company, transnational company, think the Chinese townization is urbanization. So they make these big circles. Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei, these big circles. And the Shanghai and the Jiangsu, Zhejiang, these big circles. They also make this mega city circle. But it's destroy the environment. So you cannot duplicate such kind of strategy. That's one is McKinsey. They gave the recommendation to Chinese governments like this one. But we think it's not. We think that we got to think about this rebalance strategy. During these 15 years, we are succeeded in rebalance strategy. Rebalance between urban and the inland, between urban and rural. Rebalance between coastal and inland. That is successful strategy. Now we need to have a kind of townization to make a rebalance for the mega city and the small towns. So mega city allocated too much capital. And then capital can create many benefits to the capital owners. So rich became more rich and poor became more poor. That is not balanced. To be the big continental big indigenous population country, we need to have a townization, that is a turn to the capital investments into the towns. So that is our new strategy. And also, because of the very severe pollution, so I emphasize many times, I'm a member of the state committee of the protection from the pollution. So we know the situation. Here is at that time, when he was a young man, now new president. When he was a young man, he in the village. So what is townization? Foreigners understand, they do the studies about townization, de-agriculturalization, and then townization, the citization. They think that it's a kind of logical policy. But we think that townization for people, for indigenous or for migrants. That is our policy circles consideration. It's not like a foreign study. So that is our policy thinking. And then this policy thinking is for the strategy real adjustments. We want to set up the eco-civilization. That is James, your research topic. You can take this as a PPT and for your paper. And so the new real adjustments is for people's life. It's for maintain your environment, for the eco-civilization. So we said we should pass the industrial civilization. Originally, 100 years, no matter which party, which leader, all want to gain the industrialization. Now you have been under production. You have over industrialization. You need to pass into the industrialized civilization to enter a new age of eco-civilization. That is our new strategy thought. Issued a lot of documents, try to readjust the departments and the local government's behavior. So that is a new strategy. And the new strategy needs to have a new investments. That's one shows that when the worldwide have an economic crisis, the biggest problem is in OECD economics, mainly in European countries. Why that European cannot recover? Because the investments, especially the capital investments into the infrastructure construction. Japan also. Why? European Union is a peninsula, smaller. Japan is island. You're not continent area. You have no room for infrastructure construction. That is the problem. So that is why China tried to set up a line with Europe. You also have a very big surplus capital. You need to go to Asia. I don't want to mind you that you know that the reason of the First World War, because Germany want to set up the railway to Turkey, to West Asia. That is the background of the First World War. If you go to the continent, you have a big room for your industrialization. That is a land strategy, not ocean strategy. Nowadays, if the Europe have such kind, and also the India, we have such kind of cross-continent big projects for the triangle system, including of these Africa, North Africa countries, and the Asian countries, and the European countries. You have the biggest continent, that is Eurasian Africa. This one, I think, will be big room for almost all the countries inside this big triangle. So in the 1994, when I was in the United States, I gave a talk to the international conference. We first emphasized what is a new century for the peaceful growth, not for the fighting, for the conflicts. I said people should say goodbye to the 20th century because 20th century we have so many hot wars. First World War, Second World War, and the people just predicate the Third World War. We say goodbye to 20th century because we need to have a new strategy. And then when I was in Germany, in the new century, it is 2003 or something, I gave a talk also about big triangle. I'm trying to give a new concept to the other brothers and sisters. Tell them that we can have this eco-economic growth by our ability, not invest into this military expense. We still can have a peaceful growth to benefit almost all these people around this area, including of Western Asia now in very bad situation. So we don't need some stake to turn up a lot of trouble. We just need to settle down and have what kind of we have we can invest. So that is we do the research on the global crisis. Now we are going to finish our lecture, telling about what is our concentration about the experiences. It's that almost all of the backward country need to set up your industries, but you're first facing the challenge with no capital. And then you set up the pro-capital policy, no matter pro-local capital or pro-foreign capital. And then if you're pro-foreign capital, you lose your sovereignty. And you got to regain your sovereignty and fight with this foreign strategy. That is a conflict between country and countries. So how to deal with such kind of problems depends on what kind of policy you did in your own country to transfer out your cost from the main sector. Main sector is that your aim, you want to set up industries. Yes? So that's the same in China. So when you have a big surplus of the capital, you can turn to the pro-people, pro-poor, or pro-life, pro-environment. So nowadays, at the new century, Chinese central leaders very much emphasize pro-livelihoods, pro-poor, pro-environment, more emphasize these new trends of the policy. That's because they have facing the challenge of overproduction, means that the industrial capital became surplus. That is a very rational thinking, not because of ideology. It's because of very practical issue we need to deal with. And so when we very objective to think about this world, we may have a new knowledge. Okay, so when we talk about the crisis, we need to know what is the internal factor crisis, what is external factor crisis. That is this page. I'm trying to give the conclusion. Okay, let's finish. Maybe we turn to the question. And when we have a very formal question, I hope that one female, one male. When people have only one question, if female give up their rights, male can take. So the first question I give to female, not male.
Oh. Sorry.
Okay, please.
I don't understand economics now, but one of the things I keep hearing in many lectures is the distribution of, or the contribution of GDP, and the map you showed, the yellow spots. It seems if you collect that, then it becomes about 50 to 60% of GDP of China. The development in those areas, the urbanization and the industrial development and all of that. And I'm wondering how is the wealth distributed? And you see a very developed China, and then you talk about townization, but the incomes kind of.
Thank you for your question. But you know, I just raised up the arguments. I haven't do the data collection. So maybe next time I give you the new curves and the structural analysis. I have done several local comparative studies, but not whole. So my team is just very hard to work. So I hope we can have more outcomes. Anyway, thank you. Now.
What are for you the challenges in the future? So you mentioned rebalance of rich and poor is difficult. Do you think that's going to be a bigger problem moving forward? And what does that mean for China? And where do you maybe see China in 10 years?
Also very good question. It's because we are very much worried, we are much worried about what is a new normal. Now Chinese central government very much emphasize new normal. If you set the old normal, it means that you have to deal with this overproduction as an old normal problem by investing into the infrastructure construction. That's old normal. New normal is what? Because you issue too much paper money, currencies. You enlarge the government's budget bonds. Means that you have a big financial surplus. Understand me? And then you got to deal with how to make this financial surplus to have the benefits. You got the interest. You got the returns. That is new normal. And then the high class mainly control the financial capital. If the high class very much influence the policy circle, means that China will turn to the new normal and then give more chance to this high class controlled financial capital. That is more dangerous. Because that it means if you have a financial capital, you can more easy to have more income by the stock market, future markets, speculation markets. It's take large amount of benefits like United States. Wall Street, only 300,000 people have employed in Wall Street. And then New York have a 10 million population. Can you give the employment opportunity to these poor people? No way. So shall we learn the model of United States? That is the challenge. So new normal is what? Turn to the profits of this financial capital to enlarge the big gap between rich and poor. That is we must take into consideration. So it's a good question. How Chinese new leadership deal with the final gap, last one. That is the gap between rich and poor. If you go into the financial capital grow up, you got to facing the challenge of this one. So we need time to observe. Maybe next time you come to China, maybe the rich become more rich. That is because financial capital grow up. And then physical capital became less and less important. And townization may be lose. But if we can change our big industrial surplus to the townization construction, maybe we can win the next battle. So I cannot give you a very fixed answer. I said, let's see. Okay, now turn to female. Female, you give up your rights. Okay, turn to the male.
How do you see AIIB? You talked about one belt, one road. Is AIIB a showing that China is challenging the U.S. dollar system?
It's also very, very long talk. In the late 1999, when European Union issued Euro, at that time I'm still a member of the circle. I wrote a report talking about what is our prediction about European Euro. And so the first step, China don't need to take too much Euro. Even Euro is much, much higher. Exchange rate, Euro is higher. 38% than the dollar. Is that we need to observe. And then happened is you know that from 1999, first is Kosovo conflict, turned to the Balkan war. The Euro decreased because you need to pay whole NATO's expense, and then your budget debts increased more than 5.6%. That is we observe. We see what happened. and you got to decrease. It's not a regional conflicts. It's a play by some big power. And then when these oil exportation countries like Iraq, like Libya, Iran, these countries, they announced they want to use euro to the exports. One by another, got very serious trouble. I think, okay, it's not just economic affairs. We need to wait. Now, when you said AIIB, do you think that these policy makers, these policy circles, people, they are just an idiot? They are very detailed concern what will happen. So that is why when Chinese raise up these suggestions, United States and his ally, Japan, stand outside. Until now, we fully understand their position. But we must going forward. No way, because if accept you long term to be the follower. Follower means that economically you have no exact sovereignty. Like in 1955, China said no to Soviet Union. We are such kind of big continental population country. We cannot always be such kind of follower. So AIIB is a kind of strategy. You have a kind of
Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank.
Okay.
Asian Infrastructure
Yes,
Investment Bank.
it is more
AIIB.
easier to help these backward countries to have the infrastructure construction, and then to make people to have a job, and then have a cash income, and then to have a domestic demand, and then they have a chance to develop themselves. So I think that most of these people, these politicians around this big continent will have the interest to join this program. So we are trying to avoid trouble in ocean communications. Okay, now turn to me. You are students, you don't have to give the advice to these people because they pay. So now the mayor.
What are you? Is townization going to spread also the industrial issues going west? Is that going to all? With that will come pollution, ongoing pollution. You've already got a considerable problem with chemical pollution in the water. What are your expectations about this new policy, as far in that regard?
Very good question. It's you know that originally when China started the industrialization, few people concerned about pollution. Now the pollution became more and more severe. So even that you set up the town as a center, as a kind of platform to absorb these enterprises, we also need to make the pollution as a top consideration. So now most of these local projects need to put the environmental protection as a top priority. So the townization means that you invest into more facilities for protect the environment, for protect your people, your economic growth from the severe pollution. So it doesn't mean that they continually pollution. It means that they need to invest for reduce the pollution.
Because this introduces a health crisis too.
Health
And are you ready?
Health crisis.
Health crisis.
Health, yeah.
Are the towns ready to absorb that kind of?
Originally, there is a very little investment into the rural area for protect the environment. And now, when we emphasize the townization, means that the town's investments should be make the environment protection into the programs. Originally, we have a little investment, now enlarge. So the more investments for the environment protection, maybe the situation change. Okay, now.
I mean, India's experience is that the subsidies and all don't, in the long run, doesn't work in a way.
Which one?
Any kind of subsidies or kind of social, when you try to encourage through some kind of extra incentive. In the long run, it doesn't work because, and I'm thinking that the modern China, modern educated students, why would they want to go back to the towns? Yes, there is internet and all, but there are no pubs and there are no. So on one hand, probably people who can afford to take subsidies, who can live between two places. So another way of, and that is what we see in India, the subsidies are taken by people who are already advantaged in that group.
Right.
I'm just thinking, how is China?
Right. And I just mentioned the localization. Most of these big cities, mega cities, they have a more capital allocated in these cities. So they have a more capital benefits. They take is the government's budget, and then the government's budget can give more subsidies to the citizens and then to these social umbrellas. So these are cities like Beijing. Every citizen in Beijing have the subsidies double than other cities because it's capital city. So why that people want to allocate here? They don't want to go back to their home village because here they enjoy more subsidies. So it's a change. We got to reform and then to make central budget have a more power and then to equally distribute for setting up the social umbrella for all people, no matter you live in the city or live in the countryside. So by such kind of rebalance in the social umbrella, maybe we can change the situation. But nowadays, more and more, like we call it new trends, more and more middle class go back to the countryside because they don't want to enjoy the pollution. Like I mentioned that I signed a contract with a local because people, I don't want to stay here, it's not good. Okay, so now turn to the mail. Finish? Okay.
Now, do you see China also moving more in the tertiary sector, so more servicing than and all, or not?
No, that's India. You know that if you compare China and India, the tertiary sector, service industry, much higher than China. 56 to 57% of the GDP in India made by tertiary, by service. In China, 10% less than India, which is 47. India's 57. That is the first you need to know. But India is not a model like China should learn such high tertiary sector to GDP because Indian GDP not give the service to inland, to domestic demand. It's exactly served to Western countries. So Indian high education, like university, got to divide it American town language, English, and European town English, and then to make people graduate, take a job, serve European or serve Americans. That is service for exports, not for the inland, for the domestic needs. But China need to change that service is exactly for the domestic demand. And that is a graduate step. We don't need to accelerate very fast. That's the difference. And also that we consider Hong Kong. When Hong Kong moved out all the factories to Tower Delta area, Hong Kong became tertiary sector, service industries, 82% of the GDP. And now Hong Kong became very dangerous area because if you have no agriculture, no production, you only have a financial sector, you only have a logistics and real estate, whatever you have, there's no property, no physical properties. That's much danger, and also you don't have the power like United States. U.S. can have 86% service, financial sectors. That is only one. Because the biggest brother is the biggest power, control biggest military threat. So American can do it. Hong Kong have no military threat, only come by street. So that is if you think that this model, I don't think that, the highest model in advanced countries is US. In Asia is Hong Kong or India. So it's all, this model cannot be model to learn. So that is we should be very careful to think what is the service percentage of the GDP. Thank you. Shall we finish?